love the show. I love you guys. Fucking let's go Jets. JETS. Jets.
We can't all be beautiful.
You're in the danger zone.
We are. There we are. Now we're in the danger zone. What is up, everyone? Hit that like button right off the bat, man. We are here, special edition of the danger zone with DKB, man. Finally got in touch. He works, I work, similar hours, man. Glad to be here with you today, DK. How you doing, man?
Yeah, man, I'm doing good. For starters, anybody that's service members, past, present, future, appreciate you guys and the work that you're doing out there. So big thanks. But yeah, man, family, work, life, all that good stuff. Just trying to keep it pushing, cranking out what I can. Sick intro, by the way.
Hey, man, I appreciate that, dude. Like, takes forever to make, I'll tell you that. And I already watching it, I'm like, man, I need to update so much of this. So I'm not looking forward to that work, but when it is done, it is cool to see all of our good moments, strewn together. Maybe we can get some new great moments, right?
Hey, that's the hope, man. AG's bringing the feeling for it anyways, right? I think inspiring is the early word I would go with, yeah, I guess inspiring, maybe encouraging, for lack of any other words out there.
You know what? Let's just jump into it. You mentioned Aaron Glenn, and we just got over the Sala regime, of course, which I love the guy. There was too many things on game day that I didn't like. Kind of excited for the Glenn era, but what was your, I guess, first reaction? Maybe even before that, like going into the hiring cycle, did you think we would get someone like Aaron Glenn? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I think walking into the offseason with preconceived notions has shot us in the leg like more often than once, right? So it's one of the rare situations where I just tried to keep an open mind, like, well, what are some of the baseline traits that we're looking for, right? Someone that's overcome adversity, someone that's demonstrated high-level leadership. You hear coaches, you hear players speaking to it and such. So when Aaron Glenn's name first got floated, I felt like it was very early. Like it was still maybe like week 14 for the Lions. You were hearing, chatter about he's highly interested. The Jets may have mutual feelings, et cetera, et cetera. So I was really hyped. Also being I guess kind of a midway Jets fan, right? Old enough to know some of the older guys in the Chad Pennington days and stuff, but still enough of a baby to where, we're in the midst of hoping for some greatness here. So it's always great having a connection to some of the old community and players and such as well. And I think the hiring ended up ultimately being great. I did want someone that would have been offensive oriented at one point, but as Aaron Glenn has pointed out a number of times, he spent a heavy amount of his off seasons and such, working out some kinks on that side of the ball, which is a major difference from any of the previous guys, Salah, Bowles, Ryan. Like, they tried maybe just at the tail end when everybody understood it was like a lame duck season for them. But to know that Aaron Glenn's been prepped for this at the very least is encouraging for me.
It is, man. And like you said, some of the previous guys we've gotten, like, they really did stick to their side of the ball. And like already these first few months, like Glenn has tried to distance himself so far from that notion. It's just, obviously you got to see it play out, but it's really just cool to hear him say, I am a football coach. I'm not a defensive coordinator, basically. Again, you got to prove it, but I like what I'm seeing, man. I really do. Did you like Murph, who's on here often with me? He's my co-host on our Friday night show. His big thing going into the off season was he wanted an offensive minded guy.
Right.
Where did you stand with that? Or like Glenn's awesome, but like at the same time, we did not like. Where are you at there?
Yeah, no, I would say that would have been my preference too, right? I think it's easier in this day and age to, I guess, walk yourself into having at least an average to above average defense. Whereas with the evolution of the offense and just being able to, the compartmentalizing everything, right? Developing a playbook that actually makes sense and work, then actually developing the fundamentals of players, then actually having the foresight to think about, I can convert a guy here that should excel really well, or I can position a guy here, here, here. All of that kind of stuff is a lot more nuanced. And again, with our own personal experience of just seeing so many glorified DCs, as we ended up ultimately calling them, right? It would have been a nice reprieve. Like, a lot of people even go back to like the Aaron Gase, Adam Gase years now, where they're looking at certain things like, actually, offense wasn't so bad compared to what we've been seeing. So it's like when you can try to capture one of those offensive minds, you definitely want to. And I think there were definitely a handful of guys that I really, really liked this cycle, some that we had an actual shot at potentially, others that we didn't. But I think that was also one of the huge plays during this offseason was who wanted to come to the Jets, and you don't know what's happening with the quarterback situation and all the other drama that we had going on. So for the landmines that were out there and the situation that we had to navigate through, I think we ended up getting the best coach that we could.
See, and that's a huge aspect of it. Like, Aaron Glenn wanted us, like how many other candidates, like, really does desire being here, especially with the Woody drama and all that. But, we don't have to get into all that, but I do like the fact that, like, we want him, he wants us, and we're going to dude, it's just, I like to think of it like this, like, Aaron Rodgers, we tried to do that. It didn't work. Like, there's not going to be an easy fix. Like, we're not just going to steal something and it's going to make what we have doing it all better. Like, let's use one of our own and we're going to try to rise out of the sewer together. It's just, it gives you so much more, character building. Like, I don't know. A Jet is going to lead this Jet team. And I just like that notion.
No, I'm right with you. That was a huge selling point for me when I realized we actually had a shot at Aaron Glenn, and it was between like us and the Saints at a certain point. I think about it from like real world scenarios, right? So like at my job, for example, if you have somebody that's coming in for like an interview and they're like, this is the company I've been thinking about for X amount of years. I wanted this. I've been looking, developing skill sets and preparation for that. Like, that person has like a 99% chance of succeeding to some degree versus the person that's just like, you guys pay good money. I need a job. The position was open. I'm coming. So, I think it's a huge boost in and of itself. Plus, he's at the core of the DNA of what the New York Jets really were about when they had any decent level of success. So, not only has he done it at a critical position, and luckily we have a ton of guys there we feel really good about, but just as a whole, he can walk in and pinpoint this guy looks like a New York Jet, and I can get him the rest of the way in terms of the skill gap and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to training camp and preseason to kind of see how this thing looks early.
Yeah, you know what? That is so true. It's like more so his vision. I feel like he's looking for like traits that then he can mold, like physical profiles, with Brandon Stevens, the tall, rangy corner that can play press man. Like, we need to just forget about like what we think and just like lean into we got to trust him. We have to trust him. We'll see if some of these guys shake out. I tell you what, man, that corner we took in the third, I think is going to be great too.
Sorry, Thomas. Yeah.
Yes, we'll get into some of that. But let's take a minute, man. We got the chat going. I do want to let them know, obviously, if they don't know you, DKB, down below, your name is in blue. Please, guys, hit that. Go over to DK. Dude, he's been creating way, way longer than me. He's one of the OGs. I think he has videos on his channel like back during COVID. Is that around about when you started, DK?
It's tough to think about. Like the timelines are always blurry to me, but I think maybe 6 months back, I tried to look at when my channel was actually originally a gaming channel, and then the editing process and everything was sucking the fun out of playing games for me. So I was like, you know what? Let's just give Talking New York Jets football a chance, because I'm on the West Coast. It's hard to meet fans and stuff out here, but I want to say maybe it's been 3 or 4 years ago. So somewhere in the midst of like COVID wrapping up and things coming back to normal and all that.
Awesome, dude. I love your channel too, because like you don't just hit like the bubblegum stuff. In fact, you're like the opposite. You go for like the nitty gritty. You have all kind of breakdowns on the UDFA guys, which honestly, you're my plug for that stuff. So I appreciate the work you do there. I do want to circle back near the end and ask you about a few of those guys, maybe who you think, has a chance of sticking. Let's move forward a little. I do want to ask you what you think of Muji.
Yeah, Muji's interesting, right? Because I think with the New York Jets, something that makes us stand out from other teams is you always have to consider media, which means the people you're bringing in, you have to consider personality traits. And with Darren Muji, like when I look at him, he kind of reminds me of like Isaac, for example, and just some of his mannerisms and things, which isn't a bad thing. Like I know Isaac gets a bad rap because he couldn't draft for shit, but like his mannerisms, he doesn't seem overly personable, which I'm not necessarily mad at because I consider myself a pretty big introvert as well. But I think you slowly seen him over his 3 or 4 press conferences now get a little bit more adjusted to speaking things outside of just draft evaluations and free agency and some of that stuff that he loves to live in. So I think that's been nice. That's been a little bit of a plus. But I think the talent evaluation standpoint which is what we're all going to care about. Can he identify the correct free agents? It's obviously way too early to figure out draft pick stuff, but you can kind of start to get a feel for strategy, what specific traits, all that kind of fun stuff that he's going to be looking for, that I'm sure we'll see like 1,000,001 X Factor articles come out soon for and stuff like that. So I can't wait to tap in there. But I mean, it's hard to really give him a plus or fail, in my opinion, at this point. I don't think he's done anything egregious one way or the other. And I know people will combat that, right? No defensive tackle in this draft class and like all that kind of stuff. But it's year one. I've kind of mentioned this here and there as I've done certain videos. You can either swing for the stars in year one and just make huge bets on you're going to get, 2 or 3 years to try to figure some things out, or you can play it safe and you just have a bunch of high floor type guys or guys that should develop pretty quickly into key roles, and then, maybe you get knocked for not getting that Hall of Fame type guy when you could have potentially gotten him. So I don't have a ton to say in the way of he gets a B+ or anything like that from me for the offseason, but I think clearly the moves that he made fit the vision that Aaron Glenn has put out there. And the biggest confidence booster to me is that they've both been moving in lockstep. So it still feels like we're getting that that Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas style coalition that they had going on, I guess. But I think we're going to see it done at a more effective level.
You know what? And I think a big thing for me too, like draft picks, like you are leaning on your scouts, so to speak, a little bit. I think the biggest thing though is how does he structure these contracts? We have like that might be even more important right now because that's like really going to impact our window. And if he structures them very well, if I don't know his financial background, if he structures them really good though, it could expand or widen our window when we do have a franchise quarterback. And I say when, not if. Uh, but like that is key, right? And I guess I kind of trusted Joe Douglas when it came to contracts. Maybe that's a mistake. I don't know. But I mean, we do have a lot of dead money. But at the same time, like, it's like the devil versus it's the unknown that really
100%.
scares me. So
Yeah,
we'll
I
see.
think that's a good point, right? Because I think 2 or 3 years into Joe Douglas's tenure, he walked in with crazy dead cap space, and then he actually cleared it to where we had a zero balance, which was huge. And then you kind of seen the philosophy flip at that point, and we started getting a little carried away with not signing guys we should have, like JFM and some of these other guys that we let walk. And then just started kind of, I don't know, I think at that point, maybe 2 years ago, is when you started to see some things kind of fall off the rails, and stuff gets muddy with Woody Johnson potentially intervening and stuff with the kid and all that. I still think Joe Douglas was a really solid at worst GM. And I hate to try to compare GM to GM because every situation is totally different. But I think what I recall with Darren Muji, I think he's strictly just been like living a scout's life, right? Like he was on the road, he was doing national area scout stuff, and then he got in the front office, and I guess he just kind of made waves there for identifying guys that I guess just the collective group thought was really good as well, and maybe found some gems or something like that. So we'll see. I think they played it pretty safe this year, right? Because we got a lot of like lower tier free agents and stuff, a lot of 1-year contracts, kind of like we were seeing with Joe Douglas and Saleh. So I don't think we've really made a commitment one way or the other to where somebody's going to say, "Oh, I can't believe you took this guy." But it'll be intriguing to see.
It will. Moving into the draft, where did you land on the Tyler Warren, Armand Membu other debate?
Yeah, I was pretty open to whatever, right? I think for me with the first round pick, I was tired of swinging on like a high traits guy that couldn't necessarily play out of the gate. So Armand Membu was appealing. Tyler Warren was appealing, both for the same reason. But I did want to complete the offensive line. So after being able to like check out a couple of the tackles and stuff, Armand Membu seems like his rise kind of made sense. Don't know if 7 necessarily was where the value landed, but it is what it is. So Armand Membu ultimately ended up being the guy, but I think I was still a big proponent of trading down if possible to a couple picks. So I know in like one of my final mock drafts, I think I dropped to 13 where I want to say the Saints were. And we ended up taking Colston Loveland instead of like the Bears in that scenario. So I was kind of all over the place, but as long as we touched on offensive line in some capacity, that was kind of the goal for me, no matter where we picked at.
And I'm in the same, like, I honestly, I wish we would have just kept Morgan Moses, but I don't know that context. Maybe we never could. But yeah, I did also going into the draft. I'm like, man, if we did go Tyler Warren, I guarantee you we could get like Simmons or Connerly on the other side. boy, was I wrong. So I got to give Muji credit, man. Like, I can't just overlook that fact. He had the pulse, or at least, like, I don't know if it even factored in, but like, bro he got both, you know? So
Question for
kudos.
you, because I think
Yeah.
that's a good point, right? I think day 1 and 2 is where most fans are like, all right, all right, even if I didn't love the pick, I can jive with like the process and who was selected and stuff. Do you feel like on day 3 they kind of lost the pulse a bit, or what was your? Because I think most people consider day 1 or day 2 somewhere in the range of like home run, and then day 3 is like, what the hell happened?
Facts. If you could freeze time, like split it down the middle, like even round 3, like I was not expecting corner at all, and it was more like a who. But then learning the guy, I'm like, okay, we need dogs on the back end. So like first half, I really do think like A minus. Second half, yeah. What I will say is like I don't know if they counted, or yeah, I don't know if they counted on Buffalo being in front of them for rounds 4, 5, and 6. Like uh crazy. And it might have been 3, 4, 5, but it was 3 rounds in a row, and 2 out of 3 of those picks were defensive tackles. The other one was an edge. Like, did that factor in? I would love to know. But also, like, how long in that draft was I screaming, Darius Alexander's available? Darius. Like, but that's like an isolated opinion there. Like, overall, yes, I just, it's not who they took, it's who they didn't take that really irked me. But I'm not an expert either, so I got to lean toward that trust thing and just hope that the players they took factor in, like they'll be better for us than they were generally. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I'm right with you. I think that's kind of the right approach. For anybody that didn't love day 3, I think that's the right approach, right? It's hard to trade ups are always a tough situation. Like being sniped in the draft is just trash, whether you're playing Madden or you're looking at the real life thing. So I can't knock them for like I'm trying to Deion Walker like being sniped ahead of him, right? And some of these other guys that got picked. But I do think it is like, at what point? I think the more interesting question that comes from it, if you want to look at it, is how much do they value defensive tackle, right? Is it because they already have an all-pro in Quentin Williams, and so it's kind of like a lesser need to really find him a long-term partner that's young, or is it the fact that they overall just don't think defensive tackle is as important as some of the other positions that they wanted to get? So
I wonder, like, are they particularly high on Naughty? Are they particularly high on Leonard Taylor? But he's more of a 3 tech. Like,
yeah.
there's something we don't know, or they just were low on the tackles in the range we were. You know what I mean? It's just maybe they just stuck to their board, basically.
Yeah, I know a lot
Um,
of people, like when I was trying to wrap my head around it initially, the thought process went to, I know we had to assemble our coaching staff and front office staff late. So I know we kept everybody, and there's a certain element to, having scouting reports and stuff already there, but he's going to want to do his own evaluations, and this is how we grade. And we're talking to Glenn. This is how we're learning now. So maybe the first 2 days were much easier for them to prep and be ready for. Whereas day 3, you as soon as the 4th round hits, you can hear a name that's like, this guy's unranked. What the hell? I don't know who this is. So I think there's a little bit of that to it as well. But it seems like Aaron Glenn's pointed it out, right? A lot of the day 3 guys that we picked, if not all, have a strong special teams background, in addition to having a relatively high floor. So it's like, yeah, these might not be second string guys, but they're third string guys potentially with the ability to move up relatively quick. So I'm not going to knock it. We'll see what it ends up looking like this offseason. And I don't know. Maybe we'll actually get a class, even if it's not exciting, that sticks around for the most part with secondary contracts.
Good point. Yeah, like you said, maybe it's just more so their retainability, because they're going to have every shot they can to. I mean, that's where a lot of people don't realize too, like these rookies coming in are always going to be new scheme, new playbook. But guess what? So are the vets. So they're gonna have the same footing. It's going to be interesting. And Tyson down here, he mentions Cowart. I think you did break down some of these guys on your channel. Is there any insight you can give us? Maybe not on the starters, but like the secondary guys that might be vying for Kinlaw's spot?
Yeah, so I actually just did another smaller recap because I know everybody was excited, or maybe not excited, about Byron Cowart getting the early starting nod from Zach Rosenblatt and his breakdown. But I think when you look at Cowart, right, he is a guy that is more efficiency based, so he's always been used in kind of a limited role, but he's done really well in those 200 to 300 snaps that he's been able to get. And so if you want to look at a guy like that, you can make the argument maybe breakout candidate next to one of the best defensive lines he's ever going to play on. Jay Tufele, I think, is more so of kind of what we wanted in the draft, right? Like him, Fatorma Moba, like Nadi coming in. These are guys that all have that bigger build, 315, 320, 330 plus. You're expecting them to be able to two gap and take on double teams and at least eat up a gap so that Quentin Williams and, McDonald, JJ can try to fly through them. And so I don't know. I think from the fan standpoint, we have to either come to terms with what we were wanting. Obviously, the coaching staff is going to do what they want to do, but the conversations tend to sound like they just want another Quentin Williams. Next to Quentin Williams, in my mind, that's a little bit heavier. And I'm like, we don't know if that's how they want to play it. Do they necessarily care about having to force double teams, or are they expecting guys to be able to just win their matchups? And when the double teams come, they come, but it's opening up, an opportunity for somebody. So I think all of the free agents have at least some level of upside. Tufele is going to be more of your run stopper, offers, I don't know, maybe something like what we used to get with Snacks. Maybe he gives you 2 to 4 sacks, in a year if he's getting starting level snaps, but mostly it's just going to be there to get in the way. So we'll see how it pans out. But I think without us really knowing what the scheme is going to be, and I don't think it's just going to be a carbon copy of the Detroit Lions defense, because you have Steve Wilkes and all of the decades he's been in the NFL and what he's going to want to look at this roster and say we do really well. It's hard to tell. Cowart's balling out right now, but maybe it could be one of the bigger bodies like Nadi that ends up showing a little bit more in this offense. So
Facts, man. And I think you're right. A lot of people just wanted that one tech, that massive dude. You know what? Who knows? Obviously, we're not there. We don't know how high or how much they like certain guys. But I do like both Watts and Taylor from last year, man. I do want to see their journeys, another full off season in the books for them. Just flipping around to the other side of the trenches, you mentioned Zach Rosenblatt. So I have to ask you, bro, is Tippmann's starting position in jeopardy to you?
I would say Aaron Glenn has proven early that his word is true. So everything truly feels like a competition. I think it's Tippmann's job to lose, but I think it can't be understated that Myers has done arguably well enough with the Packers to where he's a starting level center. So you have that component. You also have Justin Fields and his familiarity, even though he hasn't played with them in, 5-6 years, whatever it is. So there could be some tricks of the trade. Obviously, that helps Justin Fields feel a little bit more comfortable with Josh Myers, and he goes to not Hackett, thank God, but he goes to Engstrand and he says, hey, right now, Tippmann might be able to do a few more things a little bit better, but Josh Myers makes me more comfortable. I'm okay with the protection, the time I'm going to have, etc. Let's maybe push this, lean in this direction. I think Tippmann clearly has the higher upside and everything, but I think it's going to be more so about what's going to make Justin Fields perform at his best. And if that ends up being Josh Myers, I can see us rolling with him.
Yeah, hopefully we never see Joe Yipman again, because then it's murky. Or like I wonder too, like if Simpson or Vera Tucker get nicked up hey man, all bets are off. So at least get them both some work. But I don't know, man. Titman, I think, is very high on my list for like taking that next step this year. Maybe at the top of the list. I really do think his upside is like top five center in the league. Maybe I'm crazy, uh, but I do think that he has something in. I mean, due to 6'6", like there is no way he can't be an excellent tip of the spear for you, especially going against Quinnen every day at practice. He's going to develop, so it'll be interesting. But like people say, Tipman got credited with 5 sacks given up last year. That's a lot. It's a lot. But we'll see.
I think that Titman at least had, so his one up on Myers, right, is that he has the ability to see the field, openly speaking here, like no matter what, right? In your situation, AVT Simpson goes out for a game. We've seen him at guard, and we've seen him look really, really good, being able to go out there and pull and do some of these things that you've seen the Detroit offense pull off with some of their interior players. So it's like, even if he loses, he technically maybe still wins, and maybe we win as a whole, right? I know AVT's contract situation is going to be a talking point at some point over the course of this season. So maybe he is traded in the regular season kicks off, and they look at tend to be that plug and play guy for him, right?
I see you, man. Funny, Daniel. He got my dad joke. He's probably said it, and that's probably why he's saying it too. Because, jokes get stolen. But let me ask you: did the maybe the most contentious or polarizing position room on the team, man? What do you think of our wide receiver room? Did we do enough this offseason? Does it matter? Where are you at there?
Yeah, so Garrett Wilson's Garrett Wilson, so that's always an easy conversation. I think at this point he can hit 1,000 yards with anybody. Then having a hole as slot receiver and wide receiver too is tough, right? So you like to say that over the course of the fall season draft and free agency that you've plugged one of those, which I can't arguably say that it's happening here, right? So that's kind of tough, but I think all of the guys that we got are guys that I've liked at some point, and I said this could be someone that if they had a bigger opportunity in a different offense, they can make some magic happen. And I look at Reynolds as a guy that's performed actually pretty well when he's got a larger sample size. Johnson was a guy that I always liked relatively well overall, but I just want a secondary answer. And I think if you look at it from that standpoint, the Jets can materialize that elsewhere. Breece Hall, Braylon Allen coming out of the backfield, or Isaiah Davis, maybe Donovan Edwards, whoever that looks like. I think if I had to map it out, it would be Garrett Wilson. It would be one of the running backs. And then it'll probably be Mason Taylor. And then at that point, everybody else is a tertiary option for the Jets. And you feel a little bit better about whatever production they can pull out from there.
With you, man. That's actually exactly what I feel, and not only that pecking order. And it looks like your video might have frozen. I don't know if maybe you switched tabs, but just a heads up there. Garrett, Breece, and Taylor, I think not only are 1, 2, 3, but I also think they're going to absorb like 70% of the touches when it comes to the passing game. So like that's fine and all for 1, 2, 3, but also they're gonna be a hungry 1, 2, 3, and then after that, bro, maybe you get Arian Smith with a 80-yard bomb, or Lazard. Maybe the football sticks in his helmet for a 70-yard touchdown. But let me ask you. We were Are you still frozen on your end,
Nah, it should
DK?
be fine. I hear you. I don't see any lags. I know in the midst of one of my last couple rants, I see my screen glitching out a bit, but should be good again.
Yeah. Okay. I just have your body frozen. Your audio is coming in crystal clear. Maybe could you possibly refresh and I'll stall for a minute?
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, let me jump back in
All
a
right.
second. Let me see
Thank you,
here.
brother. Yep. But yeah, guys, down below in the description, click DKB's channel in blue. You know DK. I'm sure you know him. Well worthy of a sub because, like I said, he doesn't just stick to the bubblegum stuff that you've heard a million times throughout the week. He's actually doing deep dives into UDFAs. He got a deep dive on Byron Cowart on his channel. He has pretty much all the UDFA stuff. So well worthy of a sub. And I'm not just saying that because he's here. And speaking of him being here, I believe he is back. Hey, there's that beautiful mug.
Hopefully things are fine.
Um,
Let me know if anything looks, sounds crazy or whatever.
you're good. You are good, boss. We were talking about the passing game. Angstrand, did you do any kind of did you look at any of his old stuff to get any kind of idea of what we might see with Fields?
Yeah, I had it on the docket, so it's super preliminary. San Diego State film back when Harbaugh was there with them and stuff. It's been pretty hard to come across. So I don't really know a lot of the ins and outs with it and all that kind of stuff. But I'm waiting. So I guess I have a cousin that used to go to San Diego State for a handful of years and may have knew someone that was on the coaching staff. So I'm waiting to see if they can like come and chat or at least drop some knowledge or something like that. Otherwise, I'm still digging away to see if I can find at least a handful of games or something and see kind of what the coaching would have looked like back then.
Yeah, that would be super insightful. This in the next, I mean, because we're pretty much at a lull here until training camp really breaks. I think I'm going to go and dig into Justin Fields more so than Angstrand, just to kind of because I mean I know the vanilla stuff and I've seen like the primetime action he's had, but like I really want to figure out because like dude has slowly gotten better every year. There's a lot of context. Now you got the stuff coming out. Chicago, their prior coaching staff, not really guiding Caleb Williams. So, like, that plays into it. I think it's the best we could have done this offseason as far as like going for Fields. I do think that was about the best you could expect. Let me ask you, like, do you, because me, I kind of close myself off at the idea that he can be a long term guy here. If it happens, it's awesome, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because I see hurt down that tunnel, and I've had enough of that. So, are you like me there, or are you more so like, hey, this is like 10% chance? Where are you at there?
Yeah, I'm always cautiously optimistic, right? But I can see like I've already scoped out that the coyote painted over the tunnel entrance, and that's actually a wall, right? Like, um, but I'm in the same boat. I
That's
think it's
great.
the best option for what we envision, for what Aaron Glenn envisioned the offense being able to capture someone that can actually, he's been there, seen it, can encapsulate that. And at the very least, he gives us an X factor with like his legs, which is always a damaging option for any defense. And he's seen it better than anybody else. I think, 2-3 record, something like that against Fields. So I don't know what else we could have wanted, right? Obviously, people would have loved a veteran, but it's like the options out there. Do you want to go back down that rabbit hole? Everybody's not going to be an AR, but it's like you see Derek Carr retiring, Aaron Rodgers should be retiring, like Matthew Stafford trade rumors are creeping back up, and it's like he's spending his entire offseason just trying to be able to throw a football again. I'm good. Take the option that could potentially turn into a franchise quarterback, and Aaron Glenn's trusting his coaching staff. So that's one of the things that I will say is like a a huge point of contention for me is that, not to say Salah or Bowles or Ryan or any of these other guys, Aaron Glenn has kind of put this belief out there verbally, and he's backed this up multiple times. Like, our job is to go out there and acquire these players we feel good about and get them to perform the way that everybody else wants to see on the field.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I don't want to leave our chat hanging. There was a question here I wanted to ask you. Lee Van, he said that he really cannot wait for that home opener. Do you have any thoughts on us going against a team like Pittsburgh this early into the Glenn's regime?
I love it. I know when the schedule comes out, a lot of people can't wait for like the strength of schedule numbers and to see all that kind of stuff. Like, for me, I've always been highly competitive in sports, outside of sports, like all that stuff. So I always want the hardest slate of games possible, because I want there to be no question marks about, we made it into the playoffs. Here's kind of where we're looking at standing and some things we can clean up or whatever, as opposed to having like a vanilla cakewalk into it. And it's like, well, they never really played anybody, or even the year we almost made it, like, they faced 6 backups that year. What are they really doing? So Pittsburgh, I think, is a really good litmus test, because they always tend to come out really strong as well. So this will also let us know how the offseason program really went for Aaron Glenn and company, in terms of, we don't need to explode for 40 points in week 1 or anything, but how do the fundamentals compare against one of the teams that have been the standard in terms of that?
Yeah, and I mean, you think of it even further than that. You got that barometer kind of game, followed by another one that's right inside like, they're the Steelers of our division in Buffalo. Those first 2 weeks, I'm not expecting like 2-0, but if it's a 1-score loss in both of those, I'm up here, man. Are you the same?
Yeah, I think ultimately you just have to root cause analysis is, I think, a point that never gets talked about in football, right? You talk about like the lessons learned and stuff, but you really have to analyze what went wrong. Just schematically, we not adjust to the run game just killing us on the interior. Is it a fact that we had a skill guy out there that was just struggling for the day, and we decided we didn't want to move on? He could figure it out. Like, you have to really dig deep into the cause for a game. A lot of people spend too much time like stat watching, in my opinion. And so it's easy to say, well, Garrett Wilson only had 6 catches for 60 yards. He couldn't escape anybody. Like, no, he's being blanketed all day. That wasn't his job. He just kept the chains moving. We needed someone else to step up and break something through, right? Or the defense. Sauce Gardner's been soft for, a year and a half now. So we need him to be able to go out there and help lock things down in the exterior. There's a lot more nuance to it than generally what gets spoken about.
You see, guys, why I'm telling you to subscribe to DKB, man. It's thoughtful analysis. It's not box score watching, like you said. It's so true, man. It's nuance. I mean, even with the 5 wins last year, there is way more nuance. Like, I felt like we might have been a 2-win team just by the look of it last year. But we also could have been, we could have been a 10-win team if a couple things did, like Greg Zerline. Don't get me started on Greg Zerline, but like, that's how much the nuance matter. Like, the literally infinitesimal differences in a game that can really, really change things. And in a market like New York, you got to be careful, because snowball effect, full force.
We love to sleep with somebody out, right? The blame game for us is played at an elite level.
You know what? That's a good point. Because we got Fields 2 years. We all expect to draft a quarterback next year. Are you fully in the boat of, we have, like, is Fields auditioning for next year? Is he already your next year starter because you want to bench the rookie? Where are you at there?
Yeah, so I was even after signing Fields, I was in the boat of Tyrod Taylor should have been starting, and then it's his job to lose, right? So I kind of love the, let the incumbent, be the initial starter, and then either you see there's a significant gap out of the gate and you can change things up, or you see how they compare. And that's not to say you can't do it the other way, but that just makes the most sense to me. So it was, at the very least, Aaron Glenn, he's not tiptoeing, right? So they made the announcement early. I think Muji technically broke the news, but he's starting. He's our guy. We're going to build around him, which is fine. I'm perfectly okay with that. Interchangeable skill set between him and Tyrod. And as Aaron Glenn kind of cleaned it up, just because Justin Fields is QB1 on paper doesn't mean that he'll stay that way if he can't, keep it. So I'm good there. I do think he's also auditioning for next year, that if he balls out this year, whether that equates to wins or it's just, a good individual season for him, the conversations are going to turn immediately into, well, now we got to extend this guy and try to make sure, he's the cheapest he'll ever be. We got to get him for a couple more years and he can be our new Jared Goff, 3.0. So I'm already waiting for those conversations to end up happening. But I also wanted a QB this year. I think you take the shot whenever possible until you actually secure the guy. So
would you have pounced on Shador as he kept tumbling and tumbling?
100%. 100%. I think there was an evaluation done. Quincy Avery was a guy I loosely follow, but he seems to be, I'm forgetting the name, Duke Manyweather, right? He's like the quarterback version of him. And for those that don't know, Duke Manyweather trains like a ton of the offensive lines guys coming into the league, and tends to rehab a lot of guys over like the off seasons and stuff. So he did an evaluation late where he made me want to take a double look at the film. I consider Shador to be one of the more accurate guys, and I think he's clearly proven that. But there's a lot that goes into that, which I looked at it from maybe the half glass full approach, right? He didn't have an offensive line. If you didn't have Travis Hunter, who was Travis Hunter, like, how was he going to end up looking? Because a lot of those were balls I felt like he just kind of chucked up and Travis Hunter saved him. But from Quincy Avery's premise, he kind of broke that down for me, and he actually had him evaluated as, I think, like a 5th or 6th round guy. But once we got past the 3rd, I was like, I don't know how you can't take the dart throw. And the only thing that made sense was we don't want the media narrative of all the extra stuff that Aaron Glenn's been working so hard to try to keep quiet for us. So that piece irked me only a little bit, because I'd rather have the talent on the field and you figure out a way to deal with the media, shut them down like you do any other question you don't want. But there was also some other guys I liked. I like the Syracuse kid, McCord, as another, New York Jets diehard guy. Super easy to believe in, love the aggressive mentality and what Syracuse asked him to do. And even Ohio State, a lot of people throw that film out of the window, but he did really, really well with them as well. So there's a couple guys I would have liked to have seen still.
Would you ever consider, like, say Detroit calls you up and they say 5th or 6th round pick, we would love to give Aaron Glenn Hendon Hooker and Angstrand Hendon Hooker. Do you have a take on Hooker? Because I kind of like the kid, but he is one of the older guys. I think he's like 27 or 28 already.
Yeah, I think he's finishing out his rookie contract with them, right?
Yeah. I think he's on year 3 or so.
Yes, if it's year 3, maybe. Like, I don't have any problems with the age per se or anything like that. If he hasn't, I guess Jared Goff's health has actually kept him in the backfield as well, but there's been games where they've been blowing out people, and it's like you didn't toss Hendon Hooker in. So my question would be why. But I also don't like grabbing younger guys with only like a year or so to go either. Like, if there's a 2-year buffer, I feel a little bit more comfortable about that. But yeah, I mean, potentially I'd have to know some of the specifics, but I don't see why you don't take that chance on somebody.
Fair. Just got to look at Detroit every now and then, and not because we're trying to mirror them so much, but just because, like, our guys know the players and the men. There's so much we don't know just by watching on Sundays, and Who knows? It's going to take time for maybe one or two more guys from over there to shake free, because there wasn't too much that they had. Maybe Carlton Davis was like the one guy that
Yeah.
may have been a fit, but dude got like 18 million a year. So yeah, I don't know,
Were you surprised we
but
didn't grab more Detroit free agents?
I think we will in time. I just think this cycle it just didn't really line up with who
Mhm.
we needed. So I'm gonna say incomplete on that, and give it another off season, and we'll see, because it would not shock me at all if they went and got four guys next spring. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And plus, like, what's his name down in Chicago?
Uh,
Um,
I was gonna say McDaniels. That's not it. Yeah.
oh
I can't
shit!
remember his name. You're talking about the new head
I,
coach. Um,
yes.
all
The
I can
chat
think
will
about is
help us
Ted
out.
Anderson right now. Yeah.
Yeah, the chat will help us out. But like any departing free agent has the choice: do you want to stick with Dan Campbell? Do you want to go to Chicago? Do you want to go to New York? Or do you want to just go to the highest bidder, Ben
Ben
Johnson?
Johnson, my guy.
Dude, hey, live, right? They say it on TV all the time. This is live TV. Can you tell? Yeah, this is live. um, All right. Well, we broke down a lot of that draft stuff. Let me ask you, and I don't want this to come across like interrogatory. If you have a question for me, feel free. But you have done the homework on the roster already. I want to ask you, like, is there maybe a guy that we are not expecting to be cut that you think maybe is borderline, or maybe someone you just think is getting cut? It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, there's definitely a handful of guys. I'm trying to think. I wouldn't say anybody's like a splash name, right? So like I use surprise cut like loosely, especially since Aaron Glenn has no ties to these guys, and I kind of love the sentiment that he's gonna have this like cold heart, essentially, for anybody that just doesn't live up to the expectations. But I would say some of the people that have been tagging along for a couple years, like Zach Kuntz, I think is clearly on the cutting block. I don't know how he beats out someone like Stone Smart, for example, who maybe even potentially beats out Jeremy Ruckert. Um, I would say Malachi Corley was one of the guys I did probably my earliest video on, and I don't know if I'm ready to quite walk that back yet. I think it just depends on how comfortable Tanner Engstrand is projecting some of these guys into his offense and what we'll see in training camp. But
I'd give
Corley,
him one more year maybe on him.
yeah, like it's tough for me to say that you cut a draft pick after like 1 year unless there's some added drama going on in there, right? But Clemens, yeah, I see you, Chris B. Clemens is another good one. I would say someone like Zaire Barnes, another early draft pick, is probably one that could be on the chopping block based on us getting Kiko. And I think Chaz Surratt kind of fit the last defense a little bit better as well.
Good
Um,
call. The linebacker room for sure. Yeah.
yeah, and then I had a favorite, and his name always ends up escaping me when I'm ready to talk about him. But it was the safety we picked up last year. I want to say from Duke.
Is it?
Um,
Young guy.
yeah, he was a UDFA in last year's class, and I ended up really liking what he could do. And I think they moved him to
Is it JBC?
not JBC, not JBC. Hold on, Jets. What the hell was the name again? Not this year. I want last year's something with a J. Jarius Monroe. There we go. He was a guy that I really liked, but Malachi Moore was a strong ad. Bringing back Tony Adams was solid. So I think someone like that could probably get cut out. But yeah, I think JBC, like Stiggers, is a name that I've heard could be on the outside looking in. So we'll see. Like
You
I
know,
would. Stiggers is the one I think that would suck because I think he's probably like a long-term MC2 replacement. But
I really like JBC too, but it all
yeah,
depends, like you said, especially if we're playing more man. Like maybe some of these guys were better at zone, and that's why we have we like them more. Who knows, or maybe some guys were kind of shitty at zone, and they're going to look way better. But also, like, how much do you expect to play man coverage? Do you think it's going to be like a crazy amount, or do you think it'll just be a tick more?
Yeah, no, I think so we Detroit led the league for like the last handful of years, like cover one, which is essentially man coverage, single high safety type stuff. So I see us still deploying a lot of that. I think with Steve Wilkes' background, where he does like to implement a little bit more zone, you'll see stuff balance out. But I still see us probably being like a top 7 defense in man coverage looks.
I love that, man. Do you think that comes hand in hand with Sauce shadowing, or do you think that's a totally separate argument?
Yeah, I think I don't know enough about how they used to play Carlton Davis. I don't know if he was shadowing last year or if they just let him lock down his side of the field. But I think it makes the most sense, right? Like if you throw back to the Rex Ryan days, and obviously Revis is like an easy comparison here, but just from a defensive playbook standpoint, and like if you have limited, like highly productive guys or guys that you're waiting to see how they end up looking, that can really do a lot of justice for you, right? You can shape looks, you can do a little bit more off man coverage stuff if he's wiping away their top threat. There's up front looks in the front 7. There's a lot of different deployment stunts you can do if you want to blitz a little bit more. There's a lot more you can do instead of just locking down one side of the field as opposed to having somebody shadow. So I would say it's
Brackets.
definitely worth the look. Yeah.
You can
Yeah. I
bracket
think,
guys.
cover 3 is another like trend for Detroit, so helps out in that aspect too.
Are you if you had to choose, we're gonna either press man a hell of a lot, or we're gonna blitz a hell of a lot. Do you have a preference? I
I'm
know
a
it's
man
not always
guy.
okay. All right. I was gonna
Yeah,
say
I'm a
it's
man
not
guy.
always an either or, but like I'm just saying, like, where does your love go? Okay.
Yeah. I'm man 100% is what I played in high school, is what I wanted to play in college before I got tore up, is what I construct all my Madden defenses on. I love looking at man coverage guys in the draft. That's my bread and butter.
Dude, that the accountability is there for man coverage too. Like there is no more like, oh, you viewers or you fans don't know whose fault it was, because no, it's gonna be straight, I hope. And let's see, man, because I really do think Sauce is a top 3 corner in this league. I want to see it this year. I want to see him play in man cover. I want to see shadowing. It doesn't have to be all the time, but like fourth quarter, 6 minutes left. I want Sauce on Justin Jefferson. I want him on Jamar Chase, glued to his hip, man. Maybe I'm spoiled by the Revis era, but like, just give me, like, I don't know. I want to see Sauce be a morph of Revis and Cromartie. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know.
no, 100%. I think and it's not impossible. Nobody's going to do it. I'm not even saying even like the level of play, but nobody's going to play their elite cornerback even in the same way Reeves used to be. But like Pat Surtain's like also like another pretty close version, and like you see them pull off a lot of that same stuff. So it's doable. I think there's workload management, because Revis has talked about how that really grinded down like a lot of years he could have had and stuff. But it helps that Sauce Gardner is also way better in zone and off man looks than Revis ever was too. So
That's a really good point there, because that is so. I want to be intelligent on that. Sorry, fixing my camera here. Trying to think. What? Do you have any questions for me while I fix my camera?
yeah, I was curious. So are you still expecting significant changes, I guess, in the front office, right? Because I always tend to like, I love just the draft community and stuff like that as a whole, love the hidden gems and stuff. How much of this front office would you be expecting Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn actually like change over?
You know what? I think it'll be a lot like what I said with the Detroit guys coming over. I think it's going to take time. We might not have all our like targets available at once, but I do expect them to slowly morph this into their front office. And I hope they do. Like, including the buyouts that the Jets offered, the organizational, administrative part. I hope a lot of them took that. Like, let's rip it up, man. Like, the only thing I want are my core foundational players and the good ROI players. Let's start over, dude, because it's not been working. We're what 14 years drought. That's going to extend this year. Get prepared for that because the drought's not, in my opinion, going to end this year. But like the point is, if you do all this and you're right and you get fresh ideas, fresh analysis, fresh approaches, then I do think that yes, it might extend that drought one more year. But then why don't we do a streak of playoff berths? But you gotta take time. Maybe one or two like directors college scouting and like one or two this year, and then you wait and you evaluate the others and one or two more next off season or the off season after. It's going to take time, but I think they'll prefer their own guys, assuming they have guys. Maybe in the meantime, maybe our guys win them over, but if it's decision making and you have Muji's ear constantly and Glenn's ear, I would rather it be the guys they want speaking and not the Woody guys, the Jaimes, the other guys. Like, let's distance ourselves and let's start with like let's do it right is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, when I've had some of these discussions, I try to tell people like there's a couple components to it, right? But obviously, I think the first layer is you want to rip up the floorboards when you have, dry rot, right? Like the whole Henry Ford model, like you fix it at assembly. You don't wait for it to go out and do recalls. So I think there's definitely going to be more turnover, and there's a couple of the top level guys that have already been gone for a while, right? And we're still looking to replace them and stuff. And I know I just talked about the Florida director of scouting that we brought in a couple of days ago as one of those first primary guys. But even he's coming in as like an area scout. So I'm more intrigued to see how far like Aaron Glenn's influence actually goes, because the overlap there with the new guy was him being a scout in Detroit. So now we've heard him loosely talk about it. Like, I know guys from all over the place. I'm not just looking for names. I'm looking for the skill sets and what I'm looking to accomplish. So knowing that Aaron Glenn's has some previous scouting experience and that Darren Muji has been talked highly about being a talent evaluator, I'm curious to see just who those names are that end up filling some of those old seats.
The more we talk about this, the more I am like realizing we should like we come from scouting and shit. Like, the more I think about that, though, the more I worry about the contracts and stuff. So like, hopefully contracts have gotten to a point where they're like DIY. You might be able to wiggle a couple things. Like, what I'm trying to say is I would prefer having the scouting expertise far and away more than the finances, but also I don't want to just sign a bad deal or two. Hopefully the days of bad deals are, when you're win now, I think it's a very high probability of handing out a bad deal or two. But now we have the time and patience, supposedly. Like, it's all about return of investment. Just chill and develop. The developing is the main thing, and that's hopefully an improved area for us.
Yeah, I think at the very least we're in like a pretty decent spot, right? Like, Sauce Gardner is essentially a no-brainer. Like, even for the people that have called out I don't see Garrett Wilson being as much of a diva guy as is. He's seen an offense when he hasn't been targeted fail completely around him. So he has some stuff to clean up too. But it's like I'm doing my part. I don't know how much more I can do for you guys. So I think you have two no-brainers. Jermaine Johnson feels like, and he's a little bit of a tougher judge. Like, as much as I want him to re-sign, he is a tougher call because you have the major injury, you have the breakout year, then you have year one where some people thought he was going to hit the ground running, which is why I didn't love him as a top 10 pick. And then other people, like, where he got picked is perfect to me. So year one, development guy, he gave you the early return on investment in year two, then major injury. But he does feel like even more so than like Sauce or Quinnen to me, he feels like more so kind of the heart and soul of the defense. And I would say that's worth an extension as well. Not record setting, let's reset the edge market or anything, but he feels like one of those guys that you want to have around as that future example for the next 3-4 years of this is what it means, looks and feels to be a Jet, right? So I think at least we have the caliber of guys to where it makes sense for some of these contracts we're going to dole out.
Do you think Sherwood's contract removes the possibility of retaining Quincy?
At the very least, I think it's redundant to kind of have both. Like, I don't mind having two guys that could fly around sideline to sideline and crack people. I think obviously Quincy has a little bit more pop to him. But so there's two ways I guess I look at it. It's either Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilkes don't mind having a defense with similar skill sets across the board, or it's they want that versatility in there. And so some of these guys are going to have to move on at some point, right? The contracts alone for the guys that we expect to get just aren't going to allow to have another huge contract. So the only thing that concerns me is the brother relationship that's out there. And now you're adding in the third one, which I had no idea about, Giovanni. One could impact the other. So that leads us down the road of if Quincy leaves in the upcoming year, does that mean Quinnen leaves the following year, right? And maybe not to pursue the same team, but it'll be like, I think it'll depend on how those contract conversations go. Like, hey, we kind of have the money, but we technically need to go in a different way, or maybe he has a bit of a down season. Like, if it's closer to how Aaron Rodgers described his outing with Aaron Glenn, as opposed to some of the other guys, I could see this being a little bit of an iffy situation.
Yeah, at least he'll have this year to like really introduce himself to them, and I think that could help. But you're right, he might be forced into a situation where it's like your value on the open market is just something we can't match. So, I mean, I guess if you want to keep him long term, you got to kind of hope for a mid-year from him, but not one that makes you expect it to be the norm moving forward. Maybe he's out 6 weeks, or something like that. I hate to think like that, but like it might be our only way of having him here for a championship window. But It's okay. Sherwood is blossoming. DKB, I just want to take a minute again, chat. If you're not familiar with DKB here, check down below. You can follow his YouTube. Subscribe to both of us. Maybe you'll see more collabs in the future. DK, I have a photo here I want to show you, and it's going to lead me to my next question. As we wind down here, I don't know how much time you have, but I wanted to show you this guy. This is not our defensive end. This is a dude. Look at him. He is golly, man. But it begs the question: Do you have maybe one or two breakout candidates this year? And is he one of them? He doesn't have to be, but like, who do you think could take a leap this year?
Yeah, so I kind of ate crow for this a little bit last year, but I'll just stay on the running back room since we're already there. Isaiah Davis is my guy. Like he was one that I thought was going to hit the ground running. I thought he snatched the RB2 role early, and I think if Braylon Allen just wasn't the freak of nature that he is, like that would have happened. But Isaiah Davis, I think, can I think between like him and Donovan Edwards, I would still give the nod to Isaiah Davis. And so I think he can be like that fourth or fifth option in the receiving. Essentially, Ty Johnson is what I'm looking at with him, but I think he'll be more productive. So I think there's an opportunity with more emphasis in the running back room and how they get used. And if I had a breakout on the other side of the ball, I would probably say this is tough, right? So I would probably say Tony Adams. He's a UDFA that I really love for some time too, but I talk about kind of the coaching multiplication factor, right? Like with Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich, it was linebackers. So you could essentially plug and play anybody, and you felt really good about them developing over the year and producing really well. I think you get that same boost now with anybody in the secondary. And so Tony Adams was Ashton Davis after, Ashton Davis arrived, a guy that had all the athletic gifts you wanted, but needed to work on some fundamentals and needed to just process the game a little bit better. I think if they can get him to mentally just get things a tick quicker, he's going to go out there and just reset what he'll replace Bryce Huff as the highest paid UDFA potentially. So I'm pretty confident what he'll end up looking like over the course of the year. But those would probably be two of my early favorites to keep tabs on.
You know what? I love that you are one of the few guys that does not overlook Isaiah Davis, and I love that because he's one of my personal faves as well. I loved seeing him do kickoff returns, and not just because I can't stand Xavier Gibson, but because like he was good at it. He'd get you 30 yards, he averaged 5.8 yards a carry. He just didn't get many carries. So I would love to see him be a kickoff returner, maybe with like an Arian Smith. That contrasting back there, I think would be really cool to see. But as far as me, I'll go a different route. I think I hope it's coming from the receiver room. Let me say Arian Smith. I don't know if it counts as a breakout, but I do think with Fields' big arm and us, like teams are going to creep up throughout the course of a game. I'm hoping he can catch some long ones, and that ends up at the end of the season. Dude has 650, 700 yards, 5 touchdowns. That's a breakout to me. It's not a huge one, but it is a breakout.
I say that counts.
You know what? Let's go Fashanu with the other one though.
Okay.
It's going to be a work in progress. It's going to take time, but second half of this year, I think that he is really good on the blind side. So those would be my two, I think.
I'm not mad at it. I know unspoken piece of news that kind of flew over everybody's head was the fact that he's just healthy coming back from that plantar fasciitis or whatever he ended up catching last year. So I'm excited for him.
Dude, that injury, like just growing up, you saw it in the NBA quite a bit. And like, if you know anything about it, it's nagging. It comes back. So like this offseason, I was scared. I'm like, man, I don't know. Are we really, who's behind him kind of thing? Like people, I don't get me started there either. Cause like Max Mitchell and Xavier Newman, what is back there? But the fact that we just got that news a week or two ago, like you said, I almost overlooked it, and it was a great piece of news, and that's that he's fully healthy again. Hopefully it stays that way. DK, any final questions as we wrap up here that you maybe think we ought to pull out of our bag? I think that the chat is enjoying this early evening stream, though. I will say that.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys being able to tap in. You guys are super active in here, so I'm glad to see his community is thriving. Super cool on a Monday that we threw together last minute. And also, yeah, I'm definitely plan on having him on my channel. Definitely would love to be back as soon as possible. I got kids. I got 3 of them. They're very needy. So I guess final questions will I'll dive back into some of the UDFA stuff that I know we touched on like super early, but what do you think of how many people we may retain? Because I know generally speaking, not only have we tend to find some hidden gems there, but also just seems like we have certain holes to where we keep like 2 or 3 of those guys in general. So who's kind of excited you, or who are you looking at?
You know what? Very good question. I believe I even have the list. Let me grab it real fast because that will help. Let's see
Sure.
here.
Let's see what's going on
Here
in
we go.
chat.
Thank you, sir.
Thoughts about Gerald Everett in free agency? I'm good as far as tight end room's concerned. Just a quick answer.
You know, I kind of wish we would have kept Yaboa, but I guess he's redundant with Smart.
Yeah. I mean,
All right,
maybe
here.
Smart isn't such a great blocker. Not to say Kenny Yeboah is like a world star either, but like he did spring some good runs last year. So
And I will say, look, like Smart, I think he had 19 targets last year. He caught 16 of them. So, like, let's give him a chance. As far as these guys, Skinner, I mean, it might be a casual take, but Skinner does intrigue me. I think he was one of the first guys they went and got. Maybe not the first, but one of the firsts. And we'll see. But it seems like he's got some speed. He might be a bit of Arian Smith insurance. Um, Donovan Edwards, I really hope makes this team. And if he doesn't, then use a practice squad spot on him because that's one great thing about this regime changes. Dude, we had Kuntz on our practice squad all last year. We couldn't keep a backup kicker. Like we let Siebert go to keep Kuntz. Like, so let's keep a Donovan Edwards, Skinner. I guess Mulba is a big one on this channel. Murph is a WVU guy, and I don't know if you've seen the guy, but his
yeah, he's
arms
insane.
are, dude, his arms are bigger than my body.
Like an alligator. Like I don't understand how he's
How he's 306, but he's got 200 pounds on his biceps. Like, uh, I feel like Dean Clark, I see a lot of. I mean, again, these are casual takes because you've actually done some of the homework on these guys, but is maybe one making the roster and 2 more getting practice squatted? Is that too high of hopes?
No, I think there's still an opportunity to say that like 2 of these guys probably make. So I'm like 3/4 of the way now, right? I think I'll wrap up the German guy, our IPP player tonight. Actually, well, I've done the research. I just need to record the video. But like, I have Jordan Clark and Caden Davis left. I think off the top of my head, and Peyton Page. Those are like my final 3 UDFA guys. If people are going to make, so I think Brady Cook probably gets cut just because we want to roll with 2 QBs and we'll look to elevate him, assuming we can get him on the practice squad. I think Skinner's interesting because I kind of talked about him as being our like Aaron Glenn's version of Irv Charles, for example, except he has some wheels behind him. So we'll see what happens. I know he made a couple plays during OTAs. Donovan Edwards is tricky to me because we're bringing fullback back as well, as far as I know. So I don't know if he makes the 4th running. I don't know if having that 4th running back makes sense, especially if Isaiah Davis does take on like a heavier receiver role, which is where Donovan Edwards would kind of end up needing to make a statement on. But crazier things have happened. I think the German kid sticks if he ends up staying at guard. I've seen people talk about him at tackle, but I'll talk about that in the breakdown that I'll do. Peyton Page versus Moba is interesting, but I can't necessarily see any of those 2 guys making it unless they just don't feel good about like Jay Tufele, or maybe Nadi ends up having a setback or an injury or something like that. So I would probably say, to make the roster, I would probably say Leander Weigand. I would say I want to say Jamarcus Weston, and he's only interesting because he's played like 4 positions, came in at wide receiver, went to safety, played on the edge, has been a linebacker, so you can kind of just fill him in at whatever spot needs to you need to plug him in at. But he's got one of our highest UDFA contracts with the guaranteed money, and he's kind of a freak of nature as well. And he's a special teams demon, so he's also another guy you can say could replace like a Herb Charles, but probably Leander Wiegand and Dean Clark or Jordan Clark, whichever one plays better, probably makes the most sense as the 2 that make the roster. And then Brady Cook, probably MOBA and Edwards.
Davis. What about the kicker?
I don't know. I know, what's the other guy's name? Austin something, I think.
There's a Kai Kroger.
Yeah, I know we brought him in. There's another guy that we have, don't we? Something with an A.
I think a Danish name.
Oh,
don't we
Anders
still have?
Anders Carlson.
Yeah.
So I know Anders Carlson apparently has done a little bit better in OTAs than Caden Davis. I haven't heard anything about Kai Kroger, so I don't know if maybe they're still figuring things out or he just hasn't done that well. But I probably say they lean towards Carlson just based on the consistency in which he's making some of his kicks and that he can boom a couple 50-plus yarders. So maybe Caden Davis ends up being another guy they try to stash on like practice squad. But I can see the practice squad basically being composed of a lot of these particular UDFAs, assuming they don't get snatched up, and then a couple holdovers from last year. But I would say the practice squad probably looks relatively new.
Of our 2024 backup IOL and like tackle depth, the guys I mentioned a minute ago, the Max Mitchells, the Xavier Newmans, the Carter Warrens. Who's the first guy cut for you?
But it's Max Mitchell's time. Yeah. The selling point was he had the athleticism to develop into a guy, and maybe, starter was too high of a projection, but even turning into a solid swing tackle hasn't really worked out for him. And I think a lot of that is just health and some sucky injury luck. So not all on him, but I think at this point you kind of draw the line in the sand and say, maybe you reset elsewhere.
I love it, dude. I love it because guys that were in favor are it's a fresh spin, dude. We're at the blackjack table. This dealer has been dealing shit, and guess what? Now we got a new one. So all bets are off, man.
It's a dog-eat-dog world right now with Aaron Glenn.
Yep. Okay, DK. As we go out, anything you are working on? I know you kind of teased it a little bit, but what are you working on coming up? And where can everyone find you? I know on YouTube, but any other things you got popping out there?
Yeah, as far as projects, just wrapping up the UDFA class. I probably should have took that a little bit slower because I know we got this month lull or whatever. But wrapping up the last handful of UDFAs. I guess a early 53 roster projection, and maybe I can figure out a way to link back up with you, and then we circle on something like that. I think that's always a better conversation with another voice in the room. So that'll be cool. Maybe something we can collab on. And then after that, probably just trying to dig into the coaching staff a little bit more and seeing what we can, what kind of gems we can find there. I'm not a big social media guy though, so I don't I have Instagram, but I almost never post anything on there, just content or otherwise. And I don't have like Facebook or Twitter or anything. So you can find me on YouTube at the name that he mentioned. Yeah.
I like it, man. I like it. Like I said, well worthy of a follow, and I'm not just saying that. You've been around a while, and the cool thing is your content. As people are going through their workday, they can just put it on and listen audio, and you can riff through and teach everyone about each guy. It really helps me in that way because I work in an office, and I can't just hit play all the time and back and forward and watch. So like you're a worthy follow. So have them do that. I will say, dude, I enjoyed this conversation. I planned for 45 minutes. We just doubled it. Sorry about that.
No, you're
But
all good. Trust me, if I had to bounce, the kids would have let me know or something. But I always love when I plan for like a certain time set, and it seems like time just flows by. It means it's a great conversation. So always
dude, and
down
the
for
chat's
that.
popping. Chat is popping. Appreciate them. Yeah, man. Hey, again, you said it at the top of the show, man. Respect and love to all the veterans out there, past, present, and future. Memorial Day, guys. If you're driving, please tonight, don't drink and drive. Enjoy your cookouts. You too, man, with your kids and everything. Enjoy your Monday, and thank you for visiting the Danger Zone.
Yeah, man. Likewise, appreciate the love. And yeah, can't wait for us to link up again.
All right, later, boss.
Peace.
I love the show. I love you guys. Fucking, let's go Jets. JETS, Jets.
We can't all be beautiful.
You're in the danger zone.